the brilliant John Lott, who I think single-handedly may be responsible for creating some of the most powerful data to debunk I think left's always very quick knee-jerk reaction to any time there's a shooting to scream gun control, although this time it was fused with, protect the transgenderism cult. But I'm just curious, your thoughts in terms of these gun control laws, the left's kind of go-to argumentation. I think we've even sort of seen it here, saying that, oh, we need stricter gun laws. I'm sure Tim Walz is probably already pushing that, just how wrong they are.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. Look, the ones I've heard, the first one I've heard was background checks. You could have had, they're talking about background checks on the private transfers of guns. It's not even clear that that would be relevant for this case. But the thing is, even if we had had such laws in effect and they had been perfectly enforced, there's not one mass public shooting this century that would have been stopped. We also hear about assault weapons bans. You look at first of all, we don't even know an assault weapon was used in this case. But you look at the last 25 years or so, 15% of the attacks involved a rifle of any type. And the thing is, there's no difference in terms of their ability to go and do the attack between that and some other semi-automatic gun. They all fire one bullet per pull of the trigger. An AR-15 is like a small caliber hunting rifle, semi-automatic hunting rifle. It fires the same bullets with the same rapidity. The big difference there is the outsized cosmetics, what it looks like on the outside. And just to go and ban guns primarily based on how they look and has nothing to do with how they function has never been obvious to me. But here's the bottom line, and that is I want to do something. I don't want to, I want to do something that actually matters, that's related. And one thing that you see time after time in these mass public shootings is that these attackers go to places where their victims aren't able to defend themselves. They go to these gun-free zones. We don't know everything with this individual yet by far, but time after time in their diaries and manifestos, these mass murderers explain in detail why they pick the targets that they do. But the media absolutely refuses to go and talk about those parts of their diaries and manifestos. And what do they go after? They go after gun-free zones because their goal is to get media attention. And they know the more media attention they're going to be able to get, the more people they kill. And so if they go to a place where their victims are defenseless, they're going to be able to go and kill more people and get more media attention. So, in Minnesota, it's a crime for anybody, even somebody with a concealed carry permit, to take a gun onto school property. So let's say this individual had lived. They killed 2 people, wounded something like 17 others. They'd be facing many life sentences in jail for all those crimes that they committed. Do you think taking 2 years away from maybe their 6th life or their 7th life is going to make it so, okay, well, I can live with 6 life sentences, but you take 2 more years from my 7th life, and that's going to stop me from committing the crime? The point for law-abiding citizens, though, if you or I were to go and become a felon and have to spend years in jail, our lives would be completely changed. It would completely destroy our lives. That would be a massive penalty. And so what you've done is, however unintentionally, and I can believe the desire was to try to create a safe area there, what you've ended up doing is passing a law that makes it clear that the only person that's going to have a gun there is going to be the bad guy who wants to go and do harm. And so these gun-free zones actually serve as magnets for these attacks. There's a reason why something like 92% of the mass public shootings take place in these gun-free zones, because it makes it easier for these people to go and be the only person with a gun to go and kill people.
And I guess you can extrapolate that out to DC, right? A city where it's essentially impossible to own a gun. No wonder why the crime rate is so high. And I guess another thing the media won't touch, how that is actually going down, at least from the homicide, assault, burglary perspective over the last, I guess now about around 2 weeks. I'm curious your perspective, how you think President Trump's DC crackdown, as we're told it is going from a data perspective.
Well, I think it's going extremely well. Look, again, it's just this notion, if you want to stop crime, you have to make it risky for criminals to commit crime. And you can do that by allowing victims to be able to go and defend themselves, as you were mentioning. But you can also do it by making it riskier through higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences. And the president is dealing with all of those different issues that are there. And so, you know, we have about 1,300 law enforcement officers or patrol officers in DC. So that means about 400 are on duty at any point in time. And, that's for a district of 721,000 people. You can understand why the police union complains about being stressed incredibly thin. They're like 800 officers short of where they should be. So when Trump puts over 500 FBI and ICE and DEA agents out on the street, when he has over 800 National Guard officers out there, that's essentially more than doubling the number of patrol officers that you have. And so the mayor just announced in DC that there's been an 87% drop in carjackings. There's been something like a 24% drop in violent crime that's there. Uh, these are huge drops, but the biggest change has probably been with regard to homicides. If you take the rate of homicides last year, okay, in 2024, the odds that you could go 13 days, which they just did, without a homicide is 1 in 800. That's incredibly low. And the other thing that just drives me crazy with regard to the Democrats, because they claim that they care about the poor, that they care about blacks. The latest data that we have is for 2021. And what you find is that 96% of those who were murdered are blacks. And so, you know, they claim Black Lives Matter, but apparently they don't matter when it's Trump that's enacting a policy to go and save them.
And John, just give me a minute. We saw the Chicago mayor basically saying we don't want, increased police presence, police force here. What are your thoughts on his rationale?
Well, it's like so many of these other Democrats. He just refuses to go and do the obvious things to go and make it risky for criminals to go and commit crime. He wants to go and claim that basically crime is due to poverty that's there. The empirical work that academics have done indicates that you can explain about 55% of the variation in crime rates due to law enforcement type things, higher arrest rates, conviction rates, prison sentences, the death penalty. Only a couple percent of the variation in crime rates can be explained by anything that has to do with poverty or unemployment or incomes or any of those types of other factors that are there. Age obviously has a distribution. Other demographics have things to do with it, but not poverty. So, the fact that he just can't get it out that, yeah, we need to have more police and having 5,000 more police as Joe Scarborough was asking about. It's
Yeah.
just, for him to say, not be willing to say, yeah, having 5,000 more police would make a real dent in terms of crime. Look, in Chicago, in many recent years, you've had arrest rates for murder that have been in the teens, below 20%. And that's just the arrests. Many of those individuals weren't
Wow.
being prosecuted by the Soros type district attorney for Cook County. And even when they were prosecuted, not all of them were convicted. And it may be in the teens, but that's on average. For the hard ones to go after are the gang shootings. There's the ones it's hard to get people to be able to go and be willing to testify in, to come forward. And the thing is, when you have such low rates of arrest and prosecution and conviction, that makes it hard for people to be willing to come forward because they think to themselves, geez, I come forward, I say that I saw something, and nothing happens to these guys, and I just risk.
And
going
John, we're coming
getting
up
them mad at
against
me and causing
the
trouble.
break. I know the audience is going to want to get access to all of your data and analysis. Before we have you back on, where can they go to do that and follow you?
Well, thanks. They can go to our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org.
A very wonderful website. John Lott, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on soon.